Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 3: The Ghost of Chittoor Railway Station. May I have your attention, please? Train number 112625, Kerala Superfast Express from Thiruvananthapuram Central to New Delhi is running late by 1 hour. It will be arriving shortly at Chittoor Station, platform number 3. Inconvenience caused to the passengers is deeply regretted. The railway announcement crackled through the station speakers, its mechanical voice swallowed almost instantly by the eerie silence that blanketed Chittoor railway station. It was always like this. This place had a reputation. The locals whispered of ghosts, passengers vanishing without a trace, eerie shadows moving along the tracks, strange whispers in the dead of night. And then there were the bodies. Those who went missing were sometimes found later, dead, abandoned near the station tracks. Their skin was cold, their expressions frozen in horror. But the strangest detail? Bite marks. Deep, unnatural indentations near their necks, as if something had fed on them. No one ever figured out who or what was behind it, and no one ever tried. A shadow in the dark. With a screech of metal, the train finally pulled in. A tall, broad-shouldered man dressed in dark, weathered clothes stepped onto the train with practiced ease. His movements were precise, deliberate, like a predator slipping into the shadows. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned the dimly lit compartments. He was looking for something, or someone. With every step, his eyebrows furrowed deeper. The train was too empty. It wasn't just the late hour. Something about the silence felt unnatural. His trained eyes flicked from berth to berth. A few passengers were scattered like ghosts in the dim light. But an entire compartment nearly deserted. That never happened. For a moment, even he hesitated. Had something happened here? Then a smirk tugged at his lips. It didn't matter. If the station's ghost stories kept people away, it only made his job easier. And this was his job. He wasn't just a thief. He was the reason people disappeared. The routine of a thief. For years, he had perfected his craft. Board unnoticed. Find a target. Take what he needed. Disappear. He had trained himself to strike when humans were at their weakest, deepest sleep. And that's why this train was perfect. A train bound for the capital of India would always be packed with people carrying expensive things. Gold, cash, gadgets, wealth that could be taken if the owner was too asleep to fight back. At 3:30 a.m., the human body was in its most vulnerable state. Every muscle relaxed, every mind too fogged with sleep to react in time. That was when he struck. That was how people disappeared. No ghosts, no spirits. Just him, a ghost of his own making. His lips curled into a knowing smirk as his gaze roamed the compartment, seeking his next prize. He had done this 100 times before, and if it came to a struggle, the ghost would get a new kill. The mark, a berth near the door, a young woman, fast asleep. But it wasn't her face he cared about. It was the gold chain resting against her collarbone, a delicate but expensive-looking piece, a diamond pendant catching the faint glow of the night lights. A slow smirk spread across his face. He had found what he was looking for. Silently, he pulled out a small cutter from his pocket. The train's departure horn blared. He needed to be quick. Just as he started to cut the chain, the train lurched forward with a sudden, violent jerk. Sharika's eyes snapped open. For a second, she was disoriented, her mind struggling to register why her heart was hammering against her ribs. Then she saw him. A huge man crouched over her, his rough fingers tugging at her chain. A stranger. Too close. Too dangerous. Panic slammed into her like a wave. She gasped sharply, but before she could even scream, a rough, calloused hand clamped over her mouth. The scent of sweat and rusted metal flooded her senses. "Stay quiet." The snatcher growled under his breath. Sharika's body tensed, every nerve screaming at her to run. She thrashed violently, twisting against his iron grip. The gold chain dug into her skin as the snatcher yanked it harder. Her mother's chain. Instinct took over. Sharika jerked upright, bringing her knee up as hard as she could, slamming it into his stomach. The snatcher grunted but held firm, his grip tightening. Her only thought was survival. Her hands clawed at his wrist, nails digging into his skin. She twisted her head, forcing his grip to shift for just a second. That second was all she needed. Her teeth sank into his wrist, biting down as hard as she could. The snatcher let out a sharp hiss of pain, jerking his hand back, but not letting go of the chain. Sharika saw her chance. With all her strength, she lunged at him, trying to rip the chain back, but the snatcher was faster. He raised his other hand, fist clenched, and swung at her. Sharika barely had time to react. She threw up her arm, absorbing the brutal impact on her forearm instead of her face. The force threw her off balance. She stumbled backward, crashing into the dirty man sleeping on the side berth. She tried to push herself up, but then a glint of metal. A knife pulled from the snatcher's belt, its sharp edge catching the dim train lights. Sharika's breath caught in her throat. Her entire world froze. The blade flashed in the dim light, coming straight for her throat. A muffled cry escaped her lips, before vanishing into the deafening roar of the train. End of Chapter 3.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.
Disclaimer. Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest is a work of fiction. The experiences, ideas, and theories presented by the characters, including the books they write, are purely fictional and do not reflect real-world events, beliefs, or ideologies. While some incidents and characters may be inspired by real-world scenarios, they are entirely fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The author does not endorse or share the viewpoints expressed by any character in this novel. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised.